Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Today we'll be looking at Unit 5. And of course, once you log into the Learning Management System and you pull up the Computer Literacy class, you want to scroll down somewhere in the middle of the page to Unit 5. And this is Unit 5 right here, creating a worksheet and a chart. And the introduction to the unit states, a lot of data is generated and collected in organizations and businesses. In today's competitive business environment, there is always the need to analyze data and obtain information for the purpose of making informed decisions. One of the tools used for data analysis is Microsoft Office Excel. In this unit, we look at the steps involved in creating a worksheet with a chart. Of course, these are the objectives. By the time we're done with this unit, we ought to be able to describe the Excel worksheet, enter text and numbers, use the sum button to sum a range of cells, enter a simple function, copy the contents of a cell to a range of cells using the fill handle, apply cell styles, format cells in a worksheet, create a 3D pie chart, change a worksheet name and worksheet tab color, change document properties, preview and print. Well, we're not going to print because we're not connected to a printer. Use the auto calculate area to display statistics, correct errors on a worksheet. In order to successfully complete this unit, it is recommended that you go over the Unit 5 PowerPoint found under handouts and read the web content and watch the Unit 5 videos found under bookmarks. And the assignments to be, or the task to be completed for this unit, quiz 5 and assignment 5. Now, for the last couple of weeks or so, we looked at an example of an application software, and that is Microsoft Office Word. We looked at different types of, we looked at a couple of examples of Word documents, and we actually learned how to create two types, and that is a flyer and a business letter. Today, we're looking at another example of an application software, and that is Microsoft Office Excel. And as we just read a while ago, the main purpose of Excel is that of performing data analysis. In many businesses out there, small businesses as well as corporations, they tend to use Excel a lot to perform data analysis. And the major reason for performing data analysis is that of obtaining information. In today's business world, of course, there's a lot of competition. You don't want to go making decisions just by guessing. You want to make informed decisions based on information. And so that's why there's the need to perform some sort of data analysis to retrieve the information which is embedded within the data. If you recall from, I think, Unit 1, we did state the fact that you can use, when you input data into your computer, the data is processed or analyzed, and the output or the result you get is information. So one of the applications used, of course, in analyzing or processing the data to obtain information, as we said a while ago, is Microsoft Office Excel. So let's go on to the handouts. So this, of course, is the handout for Unit 5. It's a PowerPoint. And that is it open right there. While it's loading, let me show you guys the videos. These are the videos for Unit 5. And so even though this session will be just about 1 hour long or 1 hour 30 minutes long, I encourage you guys to go over the video lessons because you're definitely going to have additional information by watching the video lessons and by reading the content embedded within the video lesson. So please, during your spare time, I know some people will tell me they don't have any spare time, but all I'm simply trying to say is you should make the most of these video resources here. Watch the videos, and then this content within the videos, which you can also read. Okay, let me go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint. We've already gone over the objectives, so I'm not going to go over that. And so as part of the class activity, which of course is assignment 5, we're going to have to create a worksheet with a chart. Let me try and zoom this out. And so it's simply a spreadsheet which contains some data, and of course it also displays a picture of the data, which of course is the chart. But before we get to creating this spreadsheet, I want to kind of let us have an overview of Microsoft Office Excel, okay? And so what is Microsoft Office Excel? Let me go ahead and pull up Excel. Now, even though I'm using Microsoft Office Excel 2016, you still should be able to create a worksheet and a chart using either Excel 2013, 2010, or 2007. For the most part, the features or the basic features remain the same. As we said a while ago, Excel, which of course is commonly referred, was created, or it's an application created by Microsoft. Is an application used for data analysis. Now, a spreadsheet or Excel is made up of rows and columns. The rows, of course, run horizontally from left to right, and the columns run vertically top to bottom. The rows are denoted by Roman numerals. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way, I think I've forgotten the last digit. And the columns are denoted by letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F. Once you get to Z, you start with A, B, and so on and so forth. Now, the point of intersection, in other words, the point where a column meets a row is known as a cell. So the point of intersection between a column and a row is known as a cell. In Microsoft Office Word, you type your content or sentences or words on a line. In Excel, you type your content within a cell. In order for you to be able to type content within a cell, you must render the cell active. You must make it active. And the way to go about making Excel active is simply by clicking within the cell. Okay? Now, if I expect for you to type some content within a specific cell, I ought to state it in such a way that you know exactly the cell I'm referring to. If I were to send a letter to you by postal mail or through the post office, then of course I need your address to make sure that the letter gets to you, to make sure that the letter gets to the right destination. In a similar scenario, in the same context, the cells of your spreadsheet are denoted or referenced by an address. So if I want you to type some content in a particular cell, I ought to be able to provide to you the address of the cell I'm referring to. And the address of the cell is made up of the column letter and the row number. So if, for example, I want you to type content in this cell right here. Let me see if I can zoom this out. Okay, yeah. So if I want you to type some content in this cell right here, then I ought to be able to say, type the content in cell E3. So the cell reference or cell address is denoted by the column letter and the row number. So if I want you to type your name or say type the word, type the name John in cell E3, then of course this is what I mean, John. I ought to be able to provide you with the address. So that's one thing we need to note about the cell address. Now, in a document or actually a notebook, you have kind of sheets of papers. So different sheets or sheets which are compiled or put together will form what is known as a book or a notebook. If you were to put multiple spreadsheets together, that will be referred to as a workbook. So if we were to add another spreadsheet to this, and then another one. Of course, this will make up what is known as a workbook. I'll be coming back to that later on. Of course, once you open Excel, by default, you have just one spreadsheet, and you can always add multiple spreadsheets, just as I did by clicking the new sheet tab right here. Okay, and another thing which we can do with a spreadsheet, of course, is performing calculations. Every time you're going to perform a calculation within a spreadsheet, you're required to start with an equal sign, and I'll be demonstrating that shortly. Now, the other features of Excel, we'll get to kind of see those once we get into creating this chart right here. And this is simply a chart for the budget of an individual. So one of the things we can do at a personal level is use a spreadsheet to plan our budget, look at what comes in, look at our expenses, and of course see if we are doing well, if we are spending much more than we're making, or if we're spending less than we're making, which of course implies that I will be saving some money. Now, in order to be able to complete this activity right, in order to be able to complete this worksheet with a chart, we're going to need the data file, and that data file is found under handouts. It's unit 5 data file, this one right here. It has the file or document contains the data which we need to create the worksheet which is depicted in this PowerPoint. So I'm going to use this data right here, input that into the spreadsheet to come up with this spreadsheet, which of course contains data and a chart. Now, a chart is simply a pictorial representation of data. In other words, a chart is simply a picture of the data. Depending on the volume of data you're dealing with, sometimes it may not be easy for someone to look at the data within your spreadsheet and deduce the information embedded in the data, or deduce the information found in your spreadsheet. And so most often, to make it easy for people to kind of easily grasp the information contained within a spreadsheet, you use the data within a spreadsheet to generate a chart. And again, as I said a while ago, a chart is simply a picture or a pictorial representation of the data. Once somebody looks at the chart, it makes it a bit easier for them to kind of understand what's happening. And there are different types of charts. You've got the pie chart, the bar chart, the donut chart, spike line chart. For this activity, we'll be creating a pie chart. And then I think for unit 6, we'll be looking at how to create a bar chart. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So I have my spreadsheet open, and of course, I'll be going back and forth between the data file and the spreadsheet. In cell A1, the text to be typed is personal budget worksheet. I'll copy and paste. That makes it easier for me. Paste. Okay. And then in cell B, in cell A2, sorry. A2, the next thing to be typed is monthly estimates. Of course, this actually is the title of our worksheet, and then this right here is a subtitle. We'll get to see that soon once I do the formatting. And you can also see that by looking at what we have on the PowerPoint. This right here is the title, and then this is the subtitle, monthly estimates. Let's get back. Cell A3, we have income. Cell A4 is wages. Cell A5 is dividends. Cell A6 is total. Then what comes up next? And so for this individual's budget worksheet, of course, we have the income. And of course, the income is based or is deduced or determined by the wages and the dividends. Of course, your wages will be your salary, dividends will be earnings from, say, stocks or some other investments. So, but these two will constitute the income for each of the months. And we have the months going from January to December. So we're going next. What we're going to do next is key in the months from January to December. Monthly estimates, I think January is in A, B. January is in cell B1. Okay, so I'll type January, hit enter. Now, there's a feature in Excel which enables you to generate terms or numbers which are in a sequence or in a sequential order. For example, if you're going to type in the months January to December in a sequential order or in a succession, instead of typing one month after the other, so having to type all 12 months, you can simply type the first month, which of course is January, use what is known as the fill handle, and copy the month of January into the next cells. And as you copy that, what the fill handle does is it generates these next series of months in the sequential order. Now, to gain access to the fill handle, you want to click within the cell which contains the content that you want to copy until the cell is active. Place your mouse to the lower right corner of the cell until you have this little cross. See, this is somewhat larger, but this is smaller. So you place your mouse to the lower right corner until you have this small or little cross, hold, and drag across the range of cells. So January, February, March, April, May, June, all the way to, I had to stop it because this feature is disturbing. So I'm going to do this. And then continue, July. Okay, I'm going to minimize this and then August. And then I will zoom in so we can get all the 12 months all the way to December. And so that's one of the advantages of using the fill handle feature. So instead of having to type all 12 months, of course, I simply type the first month, use the fill handle, copy January across the range of cells. And as I'm doing that, it's generating the other months which come up in a sequential order. So if you were to type, say, 6 months, say from July to December, you should be able to do the same thing. And if you happen to be typing or generating the months in a backward order, it can still do it for you, which of course is somewhat strange. And so we have all 12 months of the year. Next, we're going to put in the amounts for the wages and the dividends. For January, the amount is 1,029, and the dividends is 4,075. January income is 1,000.29. Sorry, I got that wrong way. Okay, all of this should be in cell B3. So I'm going to take it. The months should be in cell B3, not B2. So I'm going to cut that and paste in cell B3. paste. And then, of course, the wages for January, 1,000.29. The dividends, 4,000.75, if I'm not mistaken. February wages, 1,000. So if you look at the wages from January to December, it's the same. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the fill handle again. So instead of having to type 1,029 for each of the months, I'm going to use my fill handle and copy that across the range of cells, C3 to M3. Fill handle C3 to M3. And then, of course, for the dividends, January is again 4,075. And it's only in September that the individual has some dividends, and it's the same amount, 4,075. For all the other months, the dividends is 0. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet. September, 4,000.75, and all these other months, the dividends is 0. And that's understanding. For the most part, for stocks or any other form of investments, investors get their dividends either quarterly or every 6 months or every year. And so I think that's why right here we have the dividends in January and in September. Okay, what comes up next? At this stage, we have to calculate the total of the income for each of the months, and then the wages for all months and the dividends for all months. So we're going to go ahead, total. Now, the total is, of course, the sum. There are about 3 ways you can go about deducing or determining the total. A while ago, I said that when you're performing calculations in a spreadsheet, you start by using the equal sign. And because we want to add these 2 amounts, we're going to use the equal sign. So the first way, or the first method of, or one of the ways of determining the total is simply by adding each of these amounts. So I'm going to type my equal sign. Let me zoom out so so equal. Now I could very well type these numbers: 1,000.29 plus 4,000.75 and hit enter. The output is correct, but the method is flawed. The method is not the best, in the sense that if there were to be any change in any of these figures, that change will not be reflected in this total. Let me demonstrate that. Let's assume that for some reason, we happen to find out later on that the income the person actually made for the month of January is $2,000. So we'll come here and change this to 2,000. 2,000, let's just say 2,000.29. Now, when I hit enter, nothing happens to the total. There's no, the total does not reflect the fact that the income has changed. And so that's why it's not advisable to just type in the numbers as they are. It is advisable to reference, to use the cell reference of the cells in which the numbers are found. I'm going to demonstrate that. So let's get this back to 1,000.29. So instead of just typing in the numbers, I'm going to put the cell reference for this number. In other words, the address for this, the address of the cell within which this number is found. And that is B4. Again, column letter, and row number. So I'll type B4. And then for the 4075, I'll also type B5. Okay. This, of course, gives us the output we had before. But the advantage with this method is that if I were to change this, if we were to change the income, say to 2000.29. Now watch what happens to this total once I hit enter. It is going to be recalculated to reflect the change. You see that? And so it's advisable and it's recommended to use the cell reference in all of your calculations. And so that was the first method of performing the total, which is simply addition, adding the content in cell B4 plus that of cell B5. Now another method of doing it is, I'm going to clear the content, is you select the range of cells containing the numbers you want to add, and including the cell within which you want the total to be displayed. And then on the within the cells group, you want to click on the auto sum right here. When you click on the auto sum, it adds up the numbers. Okay, so that's the second method. I will clear this and show you all the third method. The third method, equal sign, and then of course you use the sum function. We'll be looking at functions in the next chapter, but let me go ahead and state the fact that a function is simply a predefined formula, a pre-written formula within Excel. So to use a sum function, I'll go ahead and start typing sum. And of course, Excel displays to me all of the functions beginning with S. I'm interested in the sum function. Once you have that, you have the function stated with the open parentheses, you want to type the reference of the first cell within which the first number you want to add is found. And in this case, it's cell B4. So I'll type B4 and then type colon. And then the next cell reference, B5, parenthesis close, hit enter. So all three methods, of course, will give us the same output. And it's up to, well, not written. So you should just maybe choose the method which is more convenient or which you're a lot more comfortable with whenever you're performing calculations. Now, we are required to determine the total for February, March, April, May, June. And since it's a similar type of computational calculation, let me go ahead and do that. Instead of having to go in here and do C4 plus C5 and do that for all of the remaining months, I can simply use the fill handle which you use for the month series and this income. I can use the fill handle here and copy it across the range of cells. I need to minimize this. And then, of course, zoom in. Okay. So this gives me the totals for each of the months, January, February, March, April, all the way to December. Now, if you look at the spreadsheet on the PowerPoint, we're also required to calculate or deduce the total for the wages for all of the months, the total for the dividends for all of the months, and the total for all of the income for all of the months. To do that, we're going to type the word total in cell N3, total. And then right here, again, every time you're performing a calculation, you start with an equal sign.